you ever noticed how powerful silence can be? Not the kind of silence that is empty or lonely, but the deep, calming silence that settles within you when the world slows down. That silence is not nothing, it is everything. It is the space where clarity arises, where your mind finally rests, and where your heart remembers who it truly is. For years I chased, I pushed, I spoke endlessly, trying to make things happen. I believed that the louder I made my intentions, the faster life would respond. And yet the more I forced, the heavier it became. It felt like swimming against a strong current. Nothing seemed to flow, nothing seemed to align. Then one day I stopped. I allowed myself to simply be. I stopped explaining, stopped trying to convince, and stopped seeking. I simply entered silence. In that silence, I began to notice subtle shifts. My thoughts that once raced uncontrollably became calm and deliberate. My emotions, once intense and scattered, softened into gentle awareness. It was as if the noise around me, the worries, the demands, the endless shoulds, had been lifted, leaving me open, receptive, and alive. The unexpected shift began quietly, but its impact was profound. Silence allowed me to listen, not to the chaos of the outside world, but to the wisdom within. I realized that life had been guiding me all along, but I had been too busy to hear it. In the quiet, I became aware of what I truly desired, what I truly needed, and what I was ready to release. It was like a fog lifting, revealing the path that had been there all along. In this space, I understood that pushing, controlling, and demanding only blocked the natural flow of life. Resistance always feels heavy. Effort without alignment feels exhausting. But when I stopped, when I surrendered to silence, a new energy entered. Opportunities appeared, insights came, and unexpected blessings began to flow in ways I could never have planned. Life shifted, not because I forced it, but because I allowed it. Silence teaches patience. It teaches trust. It teaches the profound truth that the answers we seek are already within us. When we are quiet, we give ourselves the chance to reconnect with our inner knowing, the part of us that has always been aligned with love, peace, and abundance. That quiet space becomes a sanctuary where transformation naturally unfolds. It is also in silence that self-love grows. When we stop seeking validation from others, when we stop justifying ourselves, when we stop trying to prove our worth, we begin to honor ourselves. We recognize that we are enough just as we are. That recognition alone can shift our life in ways we never imagined. The unexpected shift does not always come dramatically. Sometimes it is a small, gentle nudge, a realization, a change in perspective, a sudden calm that allows us to act with clarity. And yet, those small shifts accumulate, transforming our life into something richer, lighter, and more aligned than we ever thought possible. So I encourage you to embrace silence, step away from the noise, let the chatter of the mind rest, stop explaining yourself, stop striving, allow the stillness to guide you. When you do, you may discover an unexpected shift, one that opens doors you never imagined, one that brings peace, and one that reminds you of the power you always carried within. The shift is already waiting. It is quietly inviting you. All you need to do is stop, listen, and allow it in. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people see it as emptiness, as absence, as something awkward or uncomfortable. Yet silence is not a void. It is a living space, full of intelligence, awareness, and quiet guidance. When everything becomes still, something deeper begins to speak, not in words, not in noise, but in subtle feelings, realizations, and gentle knowing. Silence is where clarity is born. Most of life's confusion comes from constant mental noise. Thoughts pile on top of thoughts, worries overlap with expectations, and opinions from the outside world crowd the mind. In that state, it becomes difficult to see clearly. Silence interrupts this chaos. It creates a pause, a moment where the mind can rest. In that rest, clarity naturally arises. You do not have to search for it or force it. The answers appear because there is finally space for them to surface. Silence also allows you to reconnect with your inner guidance. There is a wisdom within you that has always known what is right, what feels aligned, and what no longer serves you. This wisdom is quiet by nature. It does not compete with fear or urgency. It waits patiently beneath the noise. When you choose silence, you give this inner voice permission to be heard. Decisions become simpler. Confusion dissolves. You begin to sense what feels expansive and what feels heavy, and that sensing becomes your guide. In silence, insight emerges effortlessly. You may suddenly understand why certain patterns kept repeating in your life. You may realize why something never worked out, or why delay was actually protection. These insights do not arrive through intense thinking. They arrive when thinking stops. Silence brings perspective. It lifts you above emotional reactions and allows you to see the bigger picture with compassion rather than judgment. Silence is also deeply healing. When the body and mind are no longer overstimulated, tension begins to release. Breathing softens. The nervous system calms. In this calm state, the body remembers how to restore balance. Emotional wounds that felt overwhelming in noise begin to feel manageable in stillness. Silence creates a safe space where healing can happen without effort or struggle. Many people fear silence because it feels unfamiliar. In the beginning, it can bring awareness to feelings that were previously buried under distraction. But this is not a bad thing. Silence does not create discomfort. It reveals what was already there. And once revealed, those feelings can finally be acknowledged, accepted, and released. Silence teaches you that you are strong enough to sit with yourself and that nothing within you needs to be avoided. As silence becomes a regular part of life, your relationship with the world changes. You stop reacting impulsively. You pause before responding. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself or prove your worth. You begin to trust your presence more than your performance. This trust is powerful. It changes how others perceive you and how life responds to you. Silence also strengthens intuition. When external noise, say, fades, inner signals become clearer. You may feel drawn towards certain people, ideas, or opportunities without logical explanation. This is inner guidance at work. It does not shout. It nudges. It feels calm, grounded, and steady. The more you honor silence, the more confidently you learn to follow these nudges. Over time, silence becomes a source of peace rather than something to escape from. You realize that you are never truly alone in silence. You are accompanied by awareness, by presence, by a quiet sense of support. In this space, you feel connected to life rather than separated from it. You feel held rather than rushed. Silence reminds you that you do not need to force clarity, insight, or direction. They come naturally when you stop interfering. The moment you allow stillness, life begins to organize itself. What once felt confusing becomes obvious. What once felt heavy becomes lighter. Silence is not empty at all. It is full of guidance, wisdom, and gentle power, patiently waiting for you to listen. Effort often feels like strength, discipline, or determination, but beneath it there is usually tension. When you push too hard, control too tightly, or force outcomes before their natural timing, you unknowingly create resistance. Life is not something that responds well to pressure. It responds to alignment, ease, and trust. The more you strain, the more distant results can feel, even when your intentions are pure. When effort becomes excessive, the body and mind contract. Breathing becomes shallow, thoughts become obsessive, and emotions grow heavy. In this state, actions are no longer inspired. They are driven by fear, lack, or urgency. You may believe you are doing everything right, yet nothing seems to move. This is not because you are incapable, but because over-effort sends a silent message that you do not trust life to meet you halfway. Flow exists when action feels natural rather than forced. It is the state where things unfold with less friction, where opportunities appear without constant chasing, and where progress feels steady instead of exhausting. Over-effort disrupts this flow by trying to control every detail. Control tightens the grip on outcomes and leaves no room for life to surprise you with better possibilities than you could imagine. There is a difference between committed action and strained effort. Committed action feels grounded and calm. Strained effort feels anxious and rushed. When you are aligned, you move forward with clarity and patience. When you are forcing, you move with tension and doubt. The body always knows the difference. If your actions feel heavy, draining, or urgent, it is often a sign that you are pushing against the current instead of moving with it. Stopping does not mean giving up. It means releasing unnecessary struggle. When you pause, you allow space for clarity to return. You begin to notice what truly requires action and what can be left alone. Many people exhaust themselves trying to fix, manage, or accelerate things that would resolve naturally if given time and trust. Life has its own intelligence, and when you stop interfering, that intelligence begins to work in your favor. When you let go of forcing, resistance dissolves. Conversations become easier. Decisions feel clearer. You no longer feel the need to chase approval or outcomes. Instead, you attract situations that match your calm and certainty. Life mirrors your inner state. When you are tense and desperate, life feels blocked. When you are relaxed and trusting, life feels cooperative. Over-effort is often rooted in the belief that you are not doing enough or that you must constantly prove your worth. This belief creates a cycle of pressure and disappointment. Stopping breaks that cycle. It reminds you that your value is not measured by struggle. When you release the need to overperform, you reconnect with your natural rhythm. In that rhythm, productivity and peace can coexist. Natural response happens when you create space. Space for ideas to arise, space for timing to align, space for others to meet you halfway. When you stop pushing, you may notice that people respond differently to you. Situations that once felt blocked begin to open, not because you tried harder, but because you allowed. There is wisdom in rest, in patience, in restraint. Stillness recalibrates your energy. It softens the grip of urgency and restores trust. From this place, action becomes intentional rather than compulsive. You move because it feels right, not because you're afraid of falling behind. Life does not reward exhaustion. It responds to balance. When you stop forcing, you stop fighting the current and begin to float with it. Progress becomes smoother, effort becomes lighter, and what once felt like a struggle transforms into a natural unfolding. Over-effort blocks flow, but allowing restores it. When you choose ease over force, life responds in ways that feel supportive, timely, and deeply aligned. Inner listening is one of the most transformative practices a person can experience, yet it is often overlooked in a world that values noise, speed, and constant input. Silence creates the doorway to this transformation. When the external world quiets down, attention naturally turns inward. In that inward space, a deeper intelligence begins to emerge, one that is not shaped by fear, expectation, or outside pressure. It is calm, steady, and deeply personal. Most people spend their lives responding to external voices. Opinions, demands, comparisons, and societal standards constantly compete for attention. Over time, this noise can drown out the subtle signals of inner wisdom. Silence restores balance. It removes the influence of outside narratives and allows you to hear what feels true for you. In that moment of listening, you begin to separate conditioned desires from authentic ones. True desires do not feel urgent or desperate. They feel grounded and expansive. They carry a sense of quiet certainty rather than anxiety. Inner listening helps you recognize this difference. When you sit in silence, you may notice that some goals you once chased no longer resonate. Others may suddenly feel deeply meaningful. This clarity is not forced. It arises naturally when the mind stops racing and the heart is given space to speak. Inner wisdom communicates through feelings, sensations, and intuitive nudges rather than logical arguments. It may appear as a sense of calm when considering one option and tension when considering another. It may show up as a gentle pull toward a path you had not planned. Silence sharpens your awareness of these signals. You become more attuned to what aligns with your well-being and less influenced by what you think you should want. Listening inward also builds trust. Why? Each Each time you honor an inner nudge, you strengthen the connection between awareness and action. Decisions feel less confusing because you are no longer seeking validation from the outside. You begin to rely on your own sense of direction. This trust is deeply empowering. It shifts your relationship with life from uncertainty to quiet confidence. Silence reveals emotional truth as well. When distractions fall away, emotions surface honestly. You may realize where you have been compromising yourself, ignoring boundaries, or holding on to outdated expectations. Inner listening does not judge these realizations. It simply brings them into awareness. From awareness comes choice. You gain the ability to respond consciously instead of reacting habitually. As inner listening deepens, life begins to feel more coherent. Actions align with values. Choices reflect authenticity rather than obligation. You stop forcing yourself into roles that no longer fit. This alignment creates a sense of ease that effort alone can never produce. Even challenges feel different because they are met with understanding rather than resistance. Inner listening also reconnects you with joy. In silence, you may rediscover simple desires that were buried under responsibility and pressure. Creativity returns. Curiosity awakens. You remember what genuinely excites and fulfills you. These rediscoveries can reshape your life in subtle but powerful ways, guiding you toward experiences that nourish rather than drain you. Transformation through inner listening is not dramatic or loud. It unfolds quietly, steadily, and organically. You may not notice it happening at first, but over time, realize that your choices feel more natural, your relationships more balanced, and your sense of self more grounded. You are no longer pulled in conflicting directions because you are rooted in your own truth. Silence is the gateway to this transformation. It is the space where inner wisdom becomes accessible and true desires reveal themselves. When you listen inward, you reconnect with a guidance system that has always been present, patiently waiting beneath the noise. That reconnection changes everything, not by adding more, but by stripping away what was never truly yours. Unexpected shifts rarely arrive with noise or drama. They tend to appear quietly, almost unnoticed at first. Life often changes not through sudden breakthroughs, but through subtle adjustments that occur when you stop striving and allow things to unfold naturally. When the constant effort, pressure, and urgency fade, space opens for transformation to happen in its own gentle way. Striving creates tension. It places the mind in a state of constant wanting, fixing, and pushing. In that state, it is difficult to recognize change because attention is focused on what is missing rather than what is evolving. When you stop striving, your awareness shifts. You become more present. You start noticing small changes in how you think, how you feel, and how you respond. These small internal shifts are often the first signs that something deeper is realigning. Life responds differently when you are no longer forcing outcomes. Conversations feel lighter. Decisions feel less heavy. You may find yourself reacting with calm where you once reacted with anxiety. These changes can feel insignificant in the moment. But they are powerful indicators of inner transformation. Each time you choose ease over pressure, you loosen the grip of old patterns. Small realizations are the building blocks of major change. A moment of clarity about a habit, a quiet understanding about a relationship, a sudden awareness that something you've been chasing no longer matters. These realizations do not demand immediate action. They simply plant seeds. Over time, these seeds grow, influencing your choices and shaping your direction without force. When you stop striving, you also stop resisting. Resistance often shows up as frustration with timing, people, or circumstances. Letting go of that resistance does not mean passivity. It means acceptance of the present moment. From acceptance, movement becomes smoother. You begin to act from clarity rather than desperation. Life responds to this shift by opening doors that were previously invisible. Transformation feels different when it is gentle. There is less fear, less self-doubt, and less exhaustion. You are not trying to become someone else. You are returning to yourself. This return feels familiar and grounding. You may not announce it to the world, but you feel it in your body, in your breath, and in your sense of peace. Unexpected shifts often reveal themselves in hindsight. One day you realize you no longer react the way you used to. You notice that situations that once drained you no longer have the same effect. You recognize that your priorities have changed without effort. This is how real transformation works. It integrates slowly until it becomes your new normal. Stopping striving also teaches patience. It shows you that timing matters, and that not everything needs to happen immediately. When you allow life to move at its own pace, you align with rhythms that are supportive rather than stressful. This alignment creates momentum that feels natural and sustainable. Gentle shifts also cultivate trust. Each small change confirms that you do not need to control everything for things to improve. You learn that clarity comes when you create space, not when you push harder. This trust strengthens your connection with life and with yourself. It allows you to meet uncertainty with openness instead of fear. Major transformation is rarely the result of one dramatic moment. It is the outcome of many small realizations honored over time. Each moment of awareness, each choice to pause, each decision to stop striving adds up. Together, they reshape your life in ways that feel effortless and deeply aligned. When you stop striving, you stop fighting the current. You begin to move with life rather than against it. In that movement, unexpected shifts happen gently, guiding you toward a version of life that feels lighter, clearer, and more authentic than anything force could ever create. Silence has a quiet way of reshaping how you experience time, uncertainty, and waiting. In a world that rewards speed and constant action, patience can feel unnatural, even uncomfortable, yet silence gently restores it. When the noise fades, urgency softens. You begin to feel that not everything requires immediate resolution. Quiet moments remind you that life is not rushing you, and that there is value in allowing things to unfold at their own pace. In silence, you step out of reaction mode. You are no longer pushed forward by fear of falling behind or pressure to keep up. Instead, you become present with what is happening now. This presence is where patience naturally grows. You stop demanding instant outcomes and begin to observe subtle progress that was previously overlooked. Small signs of movement become visible when the mind is no longer impatiently scanning for results. Trust develops the same way. It cannot be forced. It emerges through repeated experiences of allowing rather than controlling. Silence creates the space where this allowing becomes possible. When you sit quietly with uncertainty instead of trying to escape it, you discover that nothing collapses. Life continues, breathing continues. This realization builds a quiet confidence that you can handle not knowing everything right away. Quiet moments also help you recognize natural timing. There are moments when action flows easily and moments when effort feels heavy. Silence sharpens your awareness of this difference. You begin to sense when it is time to move and when it is time to wait. Acting in alignment with timing feels calm and intentional, while acting against it feels strained. Through silence, you learn to respect these rhythms instead of fighting them. Patience is not passive, it is attentive. In silence, you become more attuned to signals that guide your next step. Instead of pushing blindly, you listen. Instead of forcing progress, you allow insight to arrive. This attentive waiting prevents unnecessary mistakes and saves energy. It teaches you that waiting can be an active, meaningful part of growth. Trust deepens when you see that life often resolves things in ways better than you imagined. Silence allows you to notice this pattern. You recall moments when delays led to better outcomes or when things fell apart only to rearrange themselves more beautifully. These reflections strengthen your belief that timing has intelligence. The need to control begins to loosen as trust takes root. Quiet moments also soften emotional resistance. When you stop filling every space with noise or distraction, feelings have room to move and settle. This emotional settling brings clarity. You stop fighting what is and begin cooperating with it. From this cooperation, patience feels less like endurance and more like peace. As silence becomes familiar, you stop measuring progress solely by visible results. You begin to value inner stability, clarity, and ease. This shift in values naturally aligns you with life's process. You are no longer trying to rush outcomes. You are learning to move with them. This alignment reduces frustration and increases resilience. Trusting life's timing does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop pressuring. You still show up, but you do so with openness instead of insistence. Silence helps you release the belief that everything depends on your constant effort. It reminds you that you are supported by something larger than immediate circumstances. Over time, patience becomes your default state rather than something you struggle to practice. Trust becomes less about belief and more about experience. Silence teaches you again and again that when you stop resisting the moment you are in, the next step reveals itself naturally. Quiet moments are not pauses in life, they are part of the process. In their stillness, patience strengthens and trust deepens. Through silence, you align with natural timing and discover that life unfolds most gracefully when you allow it to lead. Self-love does not usually arrive through loud declarations or dramatic change. It grows quietly, almost unnoticed in moments of stillness. When the need to explain yourself fades and the urge to seek approval softens, something powerful happens within you. You begin to recognize your own worth without requiring confirmation from the outside. Stillness creates the environment where this recognition can take root. Much of emotional exhaustion comes from constantly trying to be understood, accepted, or validated. Explaining your choices, defending your feelings, and justifying your path can become a habit. Over time, this habit sends a subtle message inward that your worth depends on agreement. Stillness interrupts this pattern. When you stop responding to every demand for explanation, you reclaim your energy and bring it back to yourself. In quiet moments. You are no longer performing or presenting a version of yourself for others to approve. You simply exist. This existence without effort is deeply healing. It reminds you that you are valuable even when you are not proving anything. Self-love grows when you allow yourself to be present without judgment, without comparison, and without pressure to be more than you are in that moment. Stillness also exposes the ways you may have abandoned yourself in the past. Without distraction, you may notice how often you ignored your needs to keep peace or chased validation to feel secure. These realizations are not meant to create guilt. They bring awareness. Awareness gives you the power to choose differently. Each time you choose silence over explanation, you strengthen your relationship with yourself. When you stop seeking validation, your inner dialogue begins to change. Instead of asking, is this okay or do they approve? You start asking, does this feel right to me? This shift is profound. It places authority back in your own hands. Decisions feel more grounded. Boundaries become clearer. You stop shrinking or overextending yourself to fit expectations that were never truly yours. Self-love in stillness also teaches self-respect. You learn that not every misunderstanding needs correction and not every opinion needs a response. Protecting your peace becomes more important than winning approval. This does not make you distant or cold, it makes you centered. From this center, you interact with others more authentically because you are no longer negotiating your worth. Quiet moments create space for compassion toward yourself. Without the noise of external judgment, you can acknowledge your imperfections without shame. You see yourself as human rather than flawed. This compassionate perspective allows self-love to deepen naturally. You stop demanding perfection and start appreciating progress, resilience, and growth. As self-love strengthens, relationships begin to shift. You attract connections that respect your boundaries and reflect your self-worth. You become less reactive to criticism and less dependent on praise. This stability comes from within. Stillness teaches you that your value is constant, not something that rises or falls based on external feedback. Explaining yourself less does not mean withdrawing from connection. It means choosing authenticity over approval. You share when it feels aligned, not when you feel pressured. This intentional communication preserves your energy and honors your truth. Self-love flourishes when you stop giving away pieces of yourself to be accepted. Over time, stillness becomes a refuge rather than a void. It is where you return to yourself, recharge, and remember who you are beneath roles and expectations. In that quiet space, self-love grows steadily and sincerely. When you stop seeking validation and stop explaining yourself, you send a clear message inward. You trust yourself. That trust is the foundation of self-love. In stillness, you honor your own worth, and from that place, life begins to reflect it back to you naturally.